This time on Rad Rat Video for Tricks and Tribulations, I'm going to be trying a trick called the double latte flip. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel about skateboarding where I do lots of skateboarding stuff. What exactly that means varies a lot, but today I'm doing a trick called a double latte flip. It's a freestyle trick that was invented by Jeff Ryker about 2006, maybe 2005, I'm not sure. If you search for double latte flip on YouTube, you'll find 3 results pretty quickly. One is him, who does it really, really well. One is me, did it for a game of skate, landed it terribly. Another one was a guy named Mike, I believe. I don't really remember. But anyway, this was 2006, and I really shouldn't have gotten away with my landing. It was for an online game of skate. It's a freestyle trick, so technically landing the tail is okay, but only if it's on purpose. Anyway, I picked a trick that's not incredibly difficult because this is what my skate platform looks like at the moment. There is snow all around it. I shoveled this off about a week and a half ago, and it finally today has gotten dry. Dry may be the wrong term because there's still lots of water. I swept it off so the loose droplets are gone, but as soon as the board shoots out, it's going to go right into the snow. So I don't want something that's going to take me all day. Hopefully I'll be able to knock this one out. So let's go ahead and give it a try.
The first problem I ran into with this trick is that it really wants to rock it. It's hard to keep this board flat, which makes sense. Both of your feet are on the tail, so by the time you hit the nose, it's gotten a chance to get really straight up and down. So I'm working on that. That's the first issue I deal with. Also, this trick pops really, really weird. As soon as I get an attempt that's close enough, I'll actually show you what I mean by that. Okay, so the trick pops twice. It pops like a normal ollie, kind of, like that, the way you'd expect it to. And then as soon as it starts to flip, it bounces off the corner of the tail, right there. And that's actually where the height comes from. So that's just another thing you have to balance. You can get a really hard pop, but if it doesn't bounce or if it doesn't tap the second time, then it's not actually gonna work. So it's kind of difficult. There's also lots of stuff to worry about as far as like how far apart do you keep your feet? Do you hang your toe off like a heel flip, or do you try to keep your weight on your toe so that you can jump a little bit better? Like all this stuff is kind of, you just kind of have to work with it in the beginning. So I'm messing around with the basics and trying to get a feel for what the trick is actually gonna feel like.
Okay, so step 1 is done. Sorry the lighting is so bad. I don't look great on my screen here, but step 1 was just land a single one, and that worked out okay. Didn't take that long. The problem is though, my board is wet. There's just enough loose droplets all over that's kind of picking up on my shoes. And then every attempt a little bit slips off onto the board, and now my board's kind of wet. Also, watch my back wheels on my landing. I slid forward a little bit as I landed it, which is not great, but hopefully I can stay stable enough. I brought out a towel last time, but I left it out to dry on my clothesline, and that's the day that it snowed, so it's covered in snow somewhere under a pile over there. It fell off. So I don't have like a junk towel that I could use at the moment. My goal is to just be really good and land it no problem, and then won't have to worry about it. So that's my idea. I'm gonna land it right now in about 5 tries, and then wrap it up, call it a day.
So the cool thing about that board is completely symmetrical. So I get to pick which tail I use for any given attempt, and I can do that based on which one is the most wet at that moment. So I do switch back and forth a little bit based on which one most recently went into the snow or whatever. And it is getting pretty much sopping wet at this point. And some of these attempts are due to wetness. Most of them are just that the trick is kind of hard and you have to be very finely detailed. So I'm trying to dry my shoes off slightly to try to help with that a little bit. Now, keeping the board with me is the biggest part of this trick, with most tricks for me, in fact, where I will try to, I can either do the trick perfectly and it lands over there, or I can do half of the trick and it lands with me. That one was wetness. I'm not going to take the blame for that one. That one was just that my shoes slipped right off. What I'm going to try to do here is like sand off some of the dampness on the wood to get to a drier layer underneath. I don't think that actually did anything, of course, but worth a shot anyway. So I'm going to keep trying the trick. I'm attempting different ways to balance. I'm trying to jump mostly to my left to act like I'm going to land on the bolts. It doesn't really look like I'm doing that, though. I think my hope is that the board is just going to magically stay with me. So definitely need some help. I'm getting too much flip on some of those, though, which is kind of cool. That was a 2.5. Does seem possible to maybe do a triple, but I may save that for another time. That one, again, I think was dampness. I mean, come on. Well, okay, 2 in a row, maybe that was me. Now that one spun frontside, and that is an interesting idea for another time. I'm not sure I've seen that one before. And again, a little bit too much of a flip on that one. I was picturing the idea of what if I did it and I landed back in Cooper's stance, which is what that's called, and I was able to do it again out of it. That would be pretty cool, but also, ow. Oh yeah, that one did not feel good.
Not only did that one slip because it's so wet, but it went the exact opposite way that I am expecting it to. And so I kind of pulled my knee a little bit, like it was expecting to push, and then there's suddenly nothing there, so it kind of messed with my knee slightly. I am getting relatively close, although I'm having trouble sticking with the board, which was the problem I had back when I did it back in the day, because your weight is all on the tail. And so you got to jump over where the board will be, but the problem is as you heel flip it, you push it a little bit further that direction, so you almost have to jump like a couple of feet over to your left to want to land on it. Ideally, I could just kind of pop it backward, but I don't think it works that way. The board doesn't really slide, you know, so I'm going to keep at it.
And now we are getting into my favorite part of the trick landing process, which is the frustration section, where I will get close enough that I know the trick is possible, and I've done the trick before, so I know it's possible, but I know it's possible today with the equipment I have now, with my current abilities. Like I know, like right there, almost landed it. If you watch frame by frame, my foot was too low, and that was the only problem. So I know that the trick is possible, and yet what's going to happen is I'm actually going to run into new problems. Instead of trying to get closer and closer, I actually get farther away. One new thing that starts happening, I'm trying to visualize where my foot should have been. One new thing that starts happening is the board will nosedive sometimes. It only happens a couple of times. But it's very weird, considering that the first few attempts wanted to stay upright too much. Now one of the problems is that the board wants to nosedive too much, which is a little bit weird. But again, I'm getting very close. That one felt closer than it looked when I went back and watched it again. But still landing over it. There's a nosedive. See, that is very strange for something to happen with this trick. But alas, it happened to me anyway. So working on it, almost did a single again, so I'm starting to also underflip it too much, as well as overflip it at other times. But nonetheless, I persevere, I continue to go, and eventually I'm going to start getting close. Again, a 2.5, and then a nothing. My feet aren't super wet at the moment. The board goes in the grass into the snow a couple of times, but it's really not as bad as it was during the first section of the double. There's another nosedive. Again, kind of just this weird thing that happens every now and then. And then an inward, I guess. I think that would be kind of cool if I were to do an inward heel flip with this. But, yep, lots of snow on the board. That didn't stick for some reason. I was very surprised. I picked the board up, and it was as dry as it was when it went flying off. It's like 38 degrees, maybe 40, something like that right now as I'm skating. So it's not exactly bright and sunny and all the snow is melting, but it's at least going in the right direction. Oh, look, almost did a regular one. And then the neighbors were loud and made me angry. But, yeah, I'm going to start getting close here. I'm going to start getting very close here. Yeah, that one was a land. That is technically a land. There was nothing wrong with that other than it looking not great. I didn't have any weight on my hand, so I don't feel like there was anything not legit about it. But the goal isn't to just land a trick I've done before. I want to land it better. I want to actually do something well and make it look decent. So I'm going to keep going. But I kept that in mind, that I had that angle in my pocket and I could just stop at any time. And I think maybe lowering the pressure helped a little bit. You're seeing me do that little bit of a manual before I try the trick, and that's on purpose. That's not a balance issue. I will explain the exact reason why I'm doing that in a minute, but it actually does help to a degree with rebalancing what direction the board wants to pop in. It's a little bit confusing, but it is what it is. And another near land, that one not quite as close, but still helping me stay. Oh, that one was a little bit better. I think that's probably 2 legitimate lands, just kind of ugly ones. And then we're back to the rockets. It's like my first try all over again. And again, some more wetness. My bearings are probably rusted over. Luckily, it's a freestyle board, so I don't really have to roll on it. And there's an inward, so I started with the inwards and the nosedives during this last section, but whatever, I'm gonna keep going. And then, almost a late shove it. Maybe that's an idea for another time.
And so there it is, the double latte flip. It took me 32 minutes, which was a little longer than I expected or anticipated, but really not that bad. I'm happy-ish with the landing. It wasn't super clean. I don't think I caught it or anything. It felt like it kind of bounced off the ground slightly, but I did hurt my ankle a bit. I think it was 2 or 3 attempts in, my wheel hit my ankle. And it wasn't that bad at first, but the longer I skated and the more and more I was using it, it started to get really sore. So I'm gonna count it. It's definitely a land. It just wasn't amazing, but I guess that's all right. I'm never gonna match Jeff anyway. Like his doubles he would catch, his singles he would catch like waist high. It was ridiculous. So I'm never gonna get quite to that level. But I did realize it's probably possible to do a triple, because I was landing over 2.5s. It was hard to keep with them that well. So that's possible. Maybe I'll try that another time. So the technique I learned at the end is do this little manual right before you do the trick, which is counterintuitive, because you'd think the more you're pulling your weight back, the more the board's gonna wanna go that way. But what happens is the more you lean back, the more the board pops this way. You know, if you pop it straight up and you heel flip it, then you're way behind it. But if you're tilting back, it'll pop that way. And as you flip it, it actually stays right with you. So there's a little pro tip. Maybe I'll use that to do more. Maybe I'll do it with a front side shove it. Maybe I'll do it with a front side 180, maybe a back side 180, or maybe I'll never do another latte flip until the day I die. I don't know, we'll see. Well, that's it for this time on Tricks and Tribulations. I will see you next time. Make sure you subscribe by tapping my logo on the screen to make sure you see the next one. Here's some more stuff YouTube recommends in the sidebar as well. Thank you for watching.